Hi friends, it's Lisa Hetrick, illustrator for Gina K Designs, and I'm so grateful you could join me today for this simple and sparkly card design tutorial. I am super excited to share this with you today. This card is so easy to make and it's big on color, big on super fun, and lots of shine. So let's get started. Here are the supplies that I'm going to be using to make this card. I'm going to be using this Deco Foil adhesive pen along with the Gina K Designs foils. I'm going to be using the pen as an adhesive for the foils. I'm going to be using Gina K Designs embossing powder in fine detail silver. I love this embossing powder. This bright, bold palette of Gina K Designs premium dye inks, and as we move along in the video I will share the exact colors that I'm going to be using. I broke out my mini Misty because I want to get my sentiment straight, so I'm going to be using that. So I'm using some Turquoise C from Gina K Designs as my base for the cardstock. It's cut to 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4 1/4. And holy smokes, people, I'm not using black as my base for a cardstock this time. I really wanted to use something bold and bright, and this Turquoise C is perfect. I'm also using some of the Gina K Designs white layering cardstock, and I used some rectangular dies to cut a frame and to cut a base piece to begin the design. I'm using 3 different stamp sets for this project. I'm using my UR stamp set with the Sentiment U. I'm going to be using the flower, some of the bits and bobbles, and part of the wreath. I'm also using the Butterfly Kisses stamp set that Gina has created. I love this stamp set. I love butterflies, and that's a story for another day. But I'm going to be using that stamp set along with her foil transfer sheets that are part of the set to create this really cool embellishment on the card. And I'm using Gina K Designs Boho flowers. I love this set. It's got a beautiful butterfly in it, but I really like the sentiments and how clean and simple they are. So I'm going to be using the Are So Amazing to go with the U from my UR stamp set. So now I'm moving ahead to start to create the elements of the card. And I'm inking up the wreath element from my UR stamp set with some Turquoise C premium dye ink. I want to create this kind of tail feel to it. So before I put the flowers on, and I'm creating this, kind of making it look like the tail of the shooting star, except it's going to be flowers. Now I'm going to create the cluster of flowers that are going to be shooting out of the tail of the wreath. I'm going to start first with Passionate Pink ink and inking up the flower stamp with Passionate Pink, and then I'm going to use the Lemon Drop color and the Sweet Mango to kind of create this cluster. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp it down in the Passionate Pink ink, and it kind of creates that shooting flower, aka shooting star. So I want to create the other flower elements around it, but I don't want them to layer into the pink flowers. So I created this little mask, and I'm just going to put it down here while I ink up the stamp with the Sweet Mango and just stamp it down to create the other part of the cluster. And I didn't even clean the stamp in between when I went ahead and moved to the other side of the flower using the Sweet Mango. And then I will finish it off using the Lemon Drop ink cube, and didn't even bother to clean the stamp, and went ahead and stamped the other part of the flower up at the top right hand side to create that cluster. Then I took my Gina K Designs Tidy Towel and cleaned up the stamp and set it aside. When I take the mask off, it reveals how it just created a nice little flower cluster, and I'm ready to move on to the next step. Now it's time to kind of blow that wreath out a little bit. And you've seen me do this technique in some of my other card videos where I use the bits and bobbles from the UR stamp set, the foliage, the leaves, all of the different kinds of greenery pieces. And I start to add them around that wreath element to kind of blow it out a little bit. This time I'm using all of the bright colors that I've shared, the Turquoise C, the Passionate Pink, the Sweet Mango, and the lemon drop to kind of create a whole lot more color, really blow out the left side of the card with all the leaves and the foliage, and kind of creating a little bit more um, of a tail so that it looks like a really big shooting star of flowers. I'm using the jelly bean green with this part of the stamp to create a little bit more of an extension, kind of an explosion of color. It's also going to be an anchor point where I can add a little bit more of the leaf stamps onto the edge of it so that it looks like there's like a little tail of 3 leaves to complete the bottom portion of this design. Now I'm going to get out the MISTI and put the whole card element inside the MISTI, and I like to use that lower right hand corner just to kind of get everything in there solid, and I know it's not going to move. Put the magnets on there, and I'm taking the U stamp from the UR stamp set and just kind of lining it up where I want it to be, and go ahead and close the MISTI door. And I'm using the Jelly Bean Green and inking up the U stamp set. I'm going to do this a couple times. I do love the color when it lays down the first time, but I really wanted that U to be a little bit of a deeper green. So this next step in the card design is super fun, and this is where I'm going to use the foils to get that sparkly goodness in the center of the flower. So I'm using the Deco Foil adhesive pen from ThermoWeb, and I'm actually just kind of dabbing it onto the center of the flower, and I'm going to stamp it in each one of the flowers um, and add foil to it. So this adhesive pen is really fun to use. You can use it, you could draw things, you can like write sentiments, you could do all kinds of things, and the foil sticks to it. So it's kind of fun. It's not like perfect. It can be kind of spotty because you're putting this Deco Foil adhesive in different places, and I wasn't like intentionally trying to get it all over in a smooth way. It's the perfect way to add a little bit of foil to your stamped images. So now I'm using the Butterfly Wishes stamp set and the Lemon Drop ink cube and just stamping over top of the Foil Mates detail sheet that coordinates with the Butterfly Wishes stamp set. I'm going to go ahead and die cut it out. I put a little bit of purple tape on the die cut to hold it down while I run it through the Platinum 6 and get the perfect embellishment ready to go to add some foil. I love the coordinating die set that is available to coordinate with the Butterfly Wishes stamp set. It's perfect. So I added some dazzling orange fancy foils to this embellishment, ran it through the laminator, and this is perfection. I just love the way it came out. I'm going to repeat the same foiling process that I did on the inside of the flower using this sparkling silver foil mates on the outside of the frame and the Deco Foil adhesive pen. So I just applied the adhesive all around the frame and just got it in a couple spots. Some places I did little dots, some places I just kind of drew lines, and I applied the foil to the frame, let it sit for a few minutes and kind of rub it into the little bits and pieces and spots where the adhesive was, and then went ahead and removed it. So it left behind some really interesting pieces of foil and just a little touch of foil to add a little something to the outside of the frame. Now I'm going to add the sentiment from the Boho Flowers stamp set, and I'm going to go ahead and do this in my MISTI so that I can make sure the sentiment's straight and not wonky, and I'm able to ink it up with the Versamark a couple times on the black cardstock, and I know that the impression will be a good one. to finish this off, I'm just going to go ahead and heat emboss the silver detail embossing powder, and it just heats up really quickly, and pop it right into my Fiskars trimmer and just cut the sentiment strip and get it ready for the front of the card. So now we're coming into the home stretch of getting all of the elements of the card put together. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere all the pieces to the cardstock, and right now I'm using the ThermoWeb tear tape. I really do love this tape. It's a great strong adhesive, and if you don't like to use tape runners or you want an alternative, this is a really good one. And I'm going to use some Mono Aqua liquid glue just to adhere that frame. It's a nice, strong, clear glue. There are so many great glues, and this one's just a really good one as well. I'm just going to take the sentiment and put it right up underneath the U and get it right on there. It's going to extend a little bit over off of the edge of the card, and I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off. So the final, almost final, thing that I'm going to do to the front of the card is just add little dots of glue in a couple random places and use this jewel picker to add some sequins to the front of the card. I like using the sequins because they're really easy to put on, and they are pretty low profile, so they won't take up, it won't add a lot of bulk to the card. I'm going to go ahead and just add the butterfly embellishment to the front of the card. I love this embellishment. I think it came out really well. I'm going to use a little bit of foam tape just to pop it up a little bit on the card. It's still pretty low profile, but it adds a little bit more dimension to the card. I really like the way the final card turned out. The foil is just really shimmery and shiny and so beautiful. The dye inks and all the big bright colors kind of bring it all together. Doing the sentiment in black makes it pop off the front of the card, and the silver embossing powder really draw your eye out to the outer frame. I hope you enjoyed today's sparkly tutorial. I'm so grateful you took the time to stop by. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.